Welcome back to the Real Slim Fatty Show. I'm your host, Fatty Huama. Today, I'm going to be telling you the story about when I almost sold my company. I almost sold Clockwork. When I first started Clockwork back in 2018, I always told people, people always ask me, hey, what's your exit plan? For God knows what reason, people always want to know what every founder's exit plan. Like you're starting a company and you only want to exit out of it. I never had an exit plan. Clockwork was always the culmination of my personal and professional career. I always said that. I grew up in a restaurant business. A restaurant family. My dad owned restaurants. And so my objective was to help as many companies as possible. I had a really good career, worked at Boeing and oil and gas consulting, and I was the CFO and then ran my own CFO firm. So it's not like I started Clockwork out of lack of options. And unfortunately, for right or for wrong, a lot of startups, start that way, and then their main objective is to just get out. They're like, hey, I'm going to start this company and I'm going to sell it, flip it for 10 million, 5 million, 20 million, 100 million, whatever it may be. I was always wanting to IPO it. I had no idea what the hell that meant. I was 28, 29 when I started Clockwork. I didn't know what I was talking about, but I was just like, I want to IPO it. And when you start a business, you have a few different avenues that will really define your success. You can either IPO it, which is obviously the culmination of, pretty much kind of the pinnacle of success if you want to go down that route. You have the other option of selling it to private equity, which is by far the biggest L that you can have for an exit. Like if you can't sell, you can't IPO, you can't sell to a competitor, you can't sell to another big player in the market. You're kind of forced to sell to private equity if you want to get out of it. And that's kind of the two ends of the spectrum. And then obviously the company could go out of business. You could sell to a competitor. There's so many different things. You could keep buying other competitors, grow bigger and bigger, sell to another company. There's so many different ways that you can exit, quote unquote, out of a company. But I didn't want to exit. I wanted to IPO Clockwork. And so since 2018, I've always built on no shortcuts, do whatever we need to do to build a long living sustainable business and one that's going to be the best for every single person involved. And it was never to sell it. When I was initially approached by this company, and I can't say the name of the company, but it's probably not hard to figure out. When I was approached by them, this was probably 2 years ago. They're like, hey, we're really interested in getting to know you. We want to partner with you. And their reputation in the market is horrible. And it's not a good reputation. They're known for looking at companies, finding all their trade secrets, finding all the information that they want to find out, walking away from the deal, and then just rebuilding what they wanted to buy you for. And so I kind of knew about that, but I was always super confident in what the technology was about Clockwork, what we built, the secret sauce, as they always say, behind why Clockwork was so special and why they couldn't figure it out. And I knew they couldn't figure it out for a long time. And they had been meeting with me for a long time, asking me about why they were building what they were building and why it wasn't right. And so when I was building Clockwork, they had met me probably 2 years into the journey. We weren't even really out public. We had built our integrations and we had a few kind of test case stuff. And they reached out to me. I remember that it was the director of corporate strategy. And when a corporate strategy person reaches out to you, they only want to buy you or they want to rip off whatever you're building. There's no in between. And I had a meeting with them and I walked them through what Clockwork was. And they were like, okay, cool. This is super unique. Can we show you what we built? And I'm like, sure, you can show me what we built. And they showed me the most simple bullshit type of software. I'm like, this is the best you have. You guys have literally billions of dollars and you make billions of revenue and you have all these customers. And this is, this is seriously the best product you can build. And I was like, well, whatever. We are completely more robust than you guys. And so we ended up just parting ways as like, hey, we're going to continue to build our thing. Good luck on whatever you guys do. They ended up killing that entire initiative 2 years after we met with them because I mean, it legitimately was a useless product that they built and they invested God knows how much money into it. And so they ended up killing it. Made all the sense in the world. But for me, I'm like, cool, I'm going to keep doing. And I've been doing what I know is going to be the future for the industry. And so I was focused on building the absolute best product. And a couple years go by, we raised our venture funding, we raised our rounds, we start getting bigger, we go to these conferences, we do all these trade shows. And then, of course, that company was always sniffing around. And every once in a while, I'll see him create a trial on Clockwork because Clockwork, you can go to clockwork.ai and click try for free and you can create a trial. It does not matter where you are in the world. You can literally create a trial just by integrating your accounting software, QuickBooks, Zero. So this company would go and create trials. I never really thought much about it because we were partners with them. And I'm like, well, maybe they're just trying to be nosy. But no, no, no. They were creating trials to figure out how I built what I built. And they wanted to find a way to basically rip off Clockwork. They could not reverse engineer it. They took about 2 years trying to reverse engineer it. And I'm talking product managers, VPs of product, directors of product, their team leads, everyone and their mother was creating trials on Clockwork to try and figure out how we did what we did. And they couldn't figure it out. And so fast forward a couple years, like a year or two, and they had approached me. And I got connected to one guy who I've been friends with for a very long time. And he was like, hey, I know you don't want to sell Clockwork. I know you've talked about this and you've kind of told us pretty directly, but can we please have a conversation about this? We are really interested. We either need to build this our own or we need to buy someone that exists. And we're looking at a few other companies. Yours is the best product, yours is the best technology, but you're the smallest out of all the ones we're looking at. We're looking at some other huge players in the space, but we don't necessarily want to buy a huge player in the space. So we would love to know if you're interested in having a conversation. I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll take a conversation, even though it's not something I want to do. I trust you and I respect you. So if you say it's a good thing, I'm more than happy to have that conversation. We went down the path. We had a few meetings. It wasn't anything like grandiose. The corp strategy people were involved and the corporate development people, and they came in and they did their whole corporate development speech and their spiel and all this kinds of stuff. And immediately you're like, you're kind of a snake oil salesman. And no offense to any corp dev people out there, but when we started going down the path of really sharing a lot of the inner workings of Clockwork, they all of a sudden started getting a little bit cagey. And I'm like, well, why are they trying to pull away now? We've had this conversation. Like, we should be on track. We should be on the same page, but it just wasn't really clicking for them. And I'm like, this is kind of just weird. It was just a weird environment, weird setup. And then they just literally disappeared. It went from, we want to really, really make something happen. You guys are the best product. This is a priority for us. And then they disappeared. Complete ghost, stopped responding to emails, stopped doing stuff. I'm like, well, whatever. We signed a huge fundraise. We signed a huge customer. We signed our partnership with Thomson Reuters. And we were doing a lot of stuff. And I was like, cool. I'm not necessarily focused on you guys anyways. I didn't want to sell Clockwork in the first place. You guys were the ones that came to me. And so I kind of had this like chip on my shoulder. I'm like, screw you guys then. You wasted a lot of my time and my energy. So they disappeared. Fast forward about a year, and we went to a conference, and one of the main guys that I know comes up to me and says, hey, would you be willing to talk? And I'm like, talk about what? Like that's a pretty open thing when you come to a founder. And they said, we want to pick things back up. We are sorry with what happened last time. The champion that we had basically was torn in between either buying you guys or buying another completely different kind of arena of a company, but buying another company. And basically the two senior executives fought and they both were too stubborn to concede. And so they basically just did what every corporate company does and did nothing. So instead of buying one of us, they just didn't buy anyone and they kept fighting. The one company, the one executive that wanted to buy the other company got let go. So he wasn't there anymore. So the only exec that was the champion was the one that was all about Clockwork and they wanted to buy Clockwork. And so he goes, this is the lay of the land. And he probably told me way more than he should have. I mean, he gave me a lot of the insider kind of, tips and tricks and kind of the lay of the land. And I was like, cool, dude. Again, I trust you. I respect you. You are one of the few people in this industry that I respect. So we can have these conversations again. But we are crushing it right now. I'm about to go make a fundraise. I don't want to do anything that I don't want to do. So if the second that these conversations kind of are wasting my time, I'm out. And I was very, very flat with him. And he goes, yeah, of course, focus on what you need to do. This will just be something in the side. And so these conversations started in October. So November happened. The guy goes, I have a really big meeting with the executive again, and we're going to walk through the plans, and I will let them know that I spoke to you and that you are open to having a conversation. I'm like, sounds good. He goes, I'll reach back out to you at, by next week if this is something that we want to still pursue. I'm like, cool, dude. I'm not really putting too much emphasis on it. And of course, he reached out next week and was like, hey, we actually want to do this. And the corp dev people will be the ones reaching out to you. I'm like, oh, great. More corp dev people. They love to make things complicated just so they can kind of justify their ridiculous paychecks and all the different things that they're involved in. But sure, we can have these conversations. So I went, had the conversation with the corp dev people, picked things back up, and they were like, hey, this is really exciting. Sounds like you've done some amazing things over the last year, because they had the notes from the last corp dev people that I spoke to. And so then, and of course, corp dev is a revolving door. So the people that were working on my deal that last year, they were no longer there. So it got switched over to these new people, and the new people had to go through um, everyone's notes. They came to the call relatively well versed. And so gave them an update on everything. They were like, holy shit, we didn't think that you were going to be this far along. We want to really accelerate these conversations. I'm like, cool. And meanwhile, I'm still building Clockwork, was hiring a bunch of people, doing all the things that I needed to do for Clockwork. And for them, when a large corporation tells you that they have a urgent timeline, that does not mean the same thing as a startup. A startup's urgent timeline is a week. A large corporation's urgent timeline is like 6 months to a year. And that for them is fast. And that was one of my biggest lessons learned that I had here, is when someone tells you that, they're probably not talking the same exact language that you're talking. And so I was like, well, whatever. So things actually progressed. So we're talking November, October, November. And I remember right before Thanksgiving, we had a call, probably the third or fourth call, and they're like, "Hey, we're getting really serious about this. This is what it looks like. What's your valuation? What valuation would you be at? What did you raise your last round at? All these kinds of things. Like, we're talking dollars and cents." And I'm like, "Holy shit! I've never been at that point before," and it was kind of exciting, even though never wanted to sell Clockwork, but I was like, "This is kind of exciting." So we go through November, and then we had a huge meeting with a ton of these really, really senior executives. And I was like, wow, this is actually turning into something real. So we're talking December, and going into Christmas, no one works the second half of December anyways. And so basically everything stalled out second half of December. And I was like, whatever. I'm still focused on the stuff that I got to do. Didn't really think much of it. Going into the new year, they were like, hey, this is actually still something what we're doing. We're still pushing it along. Sorry, we were all out of office. And, in corporate America, when you're out of office, you're out of office. You don't, as a startup, I can't say the last time I was actually out of office. And so for corporate America, they were out of office. So they literally disappeared. Then they came back and they're like, okay, we want to push things forward. Then they brought in another corp dev person. This guy literally didn't even have his LinkedIn updated that he joined this company in the corp dev team. And the second that I met him, I knew I hated him, and I knew he hated me. We, for whatever reason, did not see eye to eye. We did not vibe. We were not on the same energy. And I knew he was going to be a problem. The first call we had, he goes, well, we think your valuation is rich, and we're probably not going to get there. I'm like, dude, you haven't even learned anything. Your email is not even barely active. What are you talking about? You think our valuation, you have no idea about the numbers. You're quoting numbers that are wrong. You don't know about our traction. You don't know about our fundraise. You don't know about all the stuff that we're doing. So like, why are you trying to posture? Why are you trying to have this air of confidence coming into this conversation when you don't know me? Like, you're a corporate development kind of dude. I built a company from nothing. So like, how are you going to come at me with some sort of an energy? And I knew he was going to be a problem. And I called the internal champion who was on the tech side, and I was like, dude, fuck this dude. I said, this guy sucks. I do not like him. He's trying to basically put his own stamp on the deal, and it makes no sense. And he was like, well, just be a little patient. This guy's new. He's probably trying to figure his way out, but we'll solve this. I'm like, okay, but just letting you know, if this guy's involved, I don't want to actually push through this, because it's not going to be really worth it. He gets back to the team, and the corp dev guy lied to the internal team. And he basically says to the internal team, he goes, Fady told me that he wants to go and fundraise and he doesn't want to sell. He doesn't want to go down the path of acquisition. So he's going to try his route fundraising. And if that fails, he'll come back to us. That's what my internal champion called me. He goes, did you say this? I'm like, dude, what? I was like, I didn't say anything like that. How is this guy making up this story, this elaborate story that I want to go and fundraise? Like, this guy's just trying to kind of convolute the deal. And I don't know if he was trying to tank it. I don't know if he was trying to make himself look good. I don't know if he was going to try and get a company that was worth a lot of money to sell for very little. I don't know what his actual end goal was. And kind of to fast forward to then, I'll never know what his end goal is. I have no idea what the end goal is, because what ended up happening is after this guy got introduced into the conversation, everything went to shit. I mean, we were having still meetings with all the top level people. All the top level people were signed off on this. This went all the way up to the CEO of the company. Everyone was signed off on this being a priority. This corp dev guy gets in and he starts like diverting the conversation, and he starts telling the team things that I did not say. And then the other corp dev people that were involved were kind of confused too. They're like, wait, what? Like, where did this come from? Where did this come from? And I'm like, dude, where's any of this come from? Why is everything going off the tracks so bad? And what happened was they came back and they're like, listen, we can't build what you built. And we need to find a way. And we tried to reverse engineer it. We can't. We tried to find a way to build it ourselves. We can't. It took us 3 years to build an FP&A solution for our brand new thing. We can't figure it out. Why don't you come and do what you did for yourself at XYZ company? And I said, no, like, unless there's a dollar amount attached to this, what if, I'm not going to tell you anything. And the corp dev guy, the new guy that got thrown on, the director, goes, I will not tell you a number until you commit to me that you're going to come and join. I was like, dude, I don't know what Kellogg's School of Frosted Flakes business school you went to. That's not how negotiations go. I have something that you need. You need to come to me with a price that's appropriate. He wouldn't give it to me. He would not give me a dollar. He's like, I need you to commit before we can actually go and get this signed and approved by the team. I'm like, that sounds so ass backwards. I'm not playing that game. I said, absolutely not. I'm not going to give you a commitment on something that you're not actually presenting me. And he played this line. He wanted me to basically negotiate against myself. And if you've ever been through corporate development in general, they love to make things so complicated just so they can say that I did this deal or that I didn't do this deal. Either way, they feel good. It doesn't matter for them. They're optimized to just make a decision. And sometimes just killing a deal, it gets them like on the map. It gets them to be like, hey, I did something. I came in, I committed, something of value to the company because I did X, Y, and Z, and I killed a deal that shouldn't have gone through. And I'm like, dude, I don't have time for all these corporate games that you want to play. And I told the guy, I'm like, listen, you guys have what you have to make a decision. You want to come back to me and present something? We can absolutely do that. He goes, well, while we work that deal, while we work through all that, I need you to meet with the HR team and I want to walk through your entire company and I want to walk through all the employees. I'm like, but why? Why are we going to do this? You haven't given me an offer. You haven't given me dollars and cents. You haven't given me anything. And rewind a couple weeks, the guy literally on a call, he made me schedule a call at 9 p.m. So I'm in Chicago, Central Time Zone. This guy made me call in on a call at 9 p.m. on a Friday night. Didn't ask, didn't say, are you available? Didn't say anything. Was, hey, we need to have this call. We got to sync up on a few things. I thought it was going to be an actual offer call. Get on at 9 p.m. on a Friday night. And he goes, we think you should continue finding your fundraise and then come back to us when you find out that you cannot fundraise. And I'm like, dude, who do you think you are telling me that I can't fundraise for my company? One, I don't even need to fundraise. We're profitable. I don't necessarily care what you have to say or what you have to think. But also, who are you to come and tell me what to do with my company? And if you think that I'm going to walk away from a deal, go and do something, not be able to do it, and then come back and discount myself for like, in what world? And this is what happens when you have a corporate person trying to talk to startups. If you've never worked with a startup, if you've never been your own startup, if you've never been a founder, you have no idea what it's like to be at a startup, and you have no idea how to communicate with a founder. And this dude, he was lost. I mean, he had no idea what he was doing with anything. And quite frankly, I was so just livid with this person. Never mind the corporate stuff. I'm super passionate about Clockwork and all the stuff that we're doing, but I'm a passionate person. And this guy drove me insane. And I was so pissed. And there was a time, like it was a family holiday, and I was just pissed. My parents were like, dude, this guy's not worth it. And I was like, no, fuck this guy. Like this is, and it ruined my mood for a while. And I'm like, why am I letting this guy have such an impact on me? He is so insignificant in my life. And so fast forward to one of the last conversations, I'm like, why do you want to go through my team? And so we went through my team, we did all this stuff, and he comes back and he goes, so the valuation that we told you we could be at, we can't be there. I'm like, dude, you were the one that told me to agree to something that you didn't even have. Then when you had something, you can't even get that. He's like, well, I told you I couldn't guarantee. I'm like, dude, you play so many games. You love to just keep doing this. I'm out. I'm out. And I go, I'm totally good. I called my champion and I'm like, hey, champion, on the tech side, I love you. I think what you've done is amazing. I think we could have done some amazing things, but fuck this guy. I'm never going to work with a company that actually has these kinds of people leading negotiations for acquisitions of other companies. I'm out. I'm totally good on this entire process. And the guy goes, dude, honestly, if you told me 3 months ago that this was your sentiment, I would have begged you to stay. I would have said, do not leave, do not go anywhere. This is what the future of this company, and we are going to do some amazing things together. Forgive this guy. It'll be all right. He goes, now, if you ask me, he goes, I don't know if I'm going to be here in 3 months. And I'm like, shit. Okay, great. I'm glad that this is going sideways already, because if I went there for this one guy and that one guy left, I would have freaked out. I'd been like, what the hell am I doing here? And this company wanted me to move. They wanted me to do a bunch of stuff. And I had just moved back to Chicago. And I'm like, I'm not going to leave Chicago, my friends, my family, my network, where I want to be for something insignificant, especially working with a guy that, he was kind of an asshole. I mean, they're not kind of, he was a full blown asshole, full blown corporate development asshole. And I ended up kind of letting it go for like a week. And then my champion reached out to me and he's like, listen, I want to be super transparent with you. I have no idea what's going on. We just had a massive reorganization. I wasn't even told about the reorganization. Now people from my team don't report to me anymore. I have other people from another team reporting to me now. And he goes, I have no idea what's actually going on. I can't really tell you what the future is going to be. And I'm like, dude, forget it. Like I'm told I didn't even want to do this. You were the one who sold me on joining and working together because I thought that was really cool. I don't even want to do this. I'm going to go back to focused on building my company, and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And the guy goes, that makes all the sense in the world. I wish you all the luck, all the luck. He gave me some unwarranted and unasked for advice about running my own company. And I was like, cool, dude, whatever. Like, I still respect you. Fast forward a month, my champion left. He took another really big job at a really big company. The other person got fired, his boss. The other person got fired. The entire team got completely relocated and reassigned to another organization. And that entire organization that I was going to be a part of basically blew up overnight. So when I was going through the whole process, I'm like, holy shit, this is going to be life-changing money for me, my family, my kids, my kids' kids, my kids' kids' kids, future kids, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, this could be absolutely massive. But then all this stuff kind of happened, and everything happens for a reason. It's always been a principle that I found. There are two things that I live by. One, it always works out. And two, everything happens for a reason. This happened for a reason. If this asshole didn't come into the corp dev guy didn't come in and blow this up, I probably would have pushed pretty hard to make this happen. I probably would have signed a deal that I probably shouldn't have signed in the first place. And then I would have been asked out because I would have been asked out of a company because they would have took my company and killed it. And then I would have been completely out of an organization because the entire organization blew up. So when I say that everything happens for a reason, everything happens for a reason. And I would have went from being a successful founder, VC backed founder, CEO, running my own thing, doing my own stuff, making my own decisions, my own calls, to being another corporate stooge like I was when I was working at Boeing. I left the corporate world because I never wanted to be in the corporate world. I was not made for the corporate world. And so I had talked myself into, well, maybe I'll go back as an executive and I'll have something special and I kind of talked myself into wanting to go do something that I never actually wanted to do and what I escaped from. And it was one of the wildest situations because one, I never thought I'd be at the table. I genuinely think that now, having gone through that process, I mean, very few founders in general ever even get the call that they want to be bought, go through a full-blown acquisition process. I mean, we're talking lawyers, we're drafting up documents. We had the entire tech diligence done. Every single aspect of it was so real, and it was wild to go through that process. So that alone, I feel very, very blessed and genuinely lucky to have gone through that, let alone be lucky enough to say, sorry, I'm good. I'm going to keep doing my own thing and still have a company. Because a lot of times, especially with this specific company, they would just rip off what you did and come out with something 6 months later that's identical to what you had. Luckily, they were never intelligent enough or innovative enough or agile enough to figure out how we did what we did, even when I told them a lot of the stuff. But obviously, we didn't share every single piece of the secret sauce that we have at Clockwork. And so going through that entire process was legitimately mind blowing because one, I never thought I wanted to do that. And it kind of put a little seed of doubt in my mind. But then if I ever needed more of a chip on my shoulder, now I have it because now this massive company is going to continue to flail. I mean, they are getting absolutely shredded right now. They're losing customers, losing millions of dollars every single month, let alone every single year. And it's one of the situations where we've never been stronger. We've never been poised for a larger market and all this kinds of stuff. So everything genuinely does happen for a reason. It's in our job in life to really understand what that actually means. And if you ever get it put in a position where someone comes in and their job is to make your process that much more difficult, learn from that. That signal is the signal. So there's a lot of different things. The process is the diligence. That's one of my favorite sayings from my very first VC that invested in Clockwork. He goes, the process is the diligence. And this acquisition process was the diligence that I needed. I never wanted to be at a company like that. I never wanted to work at a company that had those kinds of executives that were there literally just to be assholes and and just to say, oh, it's corporate development. That's not an excuse to be an asshole. And no job title is an excuse to be an asshole. It doesn't matter how senior or how junior you are. That was one of the things. And that I should have immediately run away from that. After the first call with this guy and he just wanted to be a pain, I should have walked away because that's not something that I believed in. When I was at Boeing, we had a lot of amazing people that worked there. And no one was there just to be an asshole about other companies. Granted, I had a kind of a specific purview into that entire thing. And who knows, maybe corp dev people at Boeing did do the exact same thing. Maybe it's a systemic thing for corporate development that they want to make every single company that they go and talk to and to buy, just they want to make them feel bad and grind them down to a nub and beat them down just so they can squeeze a couple dollars out of the deal so they can look good for their boss, for the organization. But going through that entire process was legitimately one of the most surreal things that I ever had. And luckily, we made it out on the other side and we made it out alive. And that entire organization blew up in a matter of a month, legitimately a month after I walked away from the entire deal. And I told them, hey, thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to keep doing this my own thing. And I restructured my entire team, restructured our customers, restructured our go to market, and we've made a lot of really big decisions for the company since. And so it put me back in the seat, but it was a huge distraction for a very long time. And I was fortunate enough to make it. And so I'm excited to be able to share this story. I obviously can't share too many of the specifics because technically we're under NDA, so I can't necessarily say that. But I'm sure a lot of people, if you've been through this process, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't been through it, this is the kind of process that if you ever wanted to sell your company, and if you ever do work at a corporate company, know that this kinds of stuff happens uh, regardless. And so that was a fun process. But this has been the Real Slim Fatty Show. I'm your host, Fady Hawatma, and I will catch you next time.